Do you think your coffee cup should turn into a booze cup?
Oh, you know what? That's not... I like the way you're thinking. Get in that fridge and grab me a beer. That's not bad. Snap my fingers. I have a nice trimmed beard. My coffee changed to a beer. And, I'm dressed. Welcome to the first real cooking episode of Brunchin with Bryan, the show where I make food, I drink, and if you like it, great. If not, f*** off. So it's been a while since the last episode, but that's because we've been a little bit busy. I have a hole in my back, and we have a baby now, and those two things are not related. And now, since it's getting to that Thanksgiving time of the year, I was thinking we'd make something very Thanksgiving traditional. We're gonna go with chicken shawarma and homemade pita bread. I still don't have a sponsor, but today we're going to pretend that the sponsor is the beer I'm drinking, which is Horse and Dragon Sad Panda Coffee Stout. The only reason I got this was because of the name Sad Panda, and it is delightful. So the first thing when making chicken shawarma we need to do is we need to compile seasonings into a bag that I have sitting inside of this bowl because there'll be liquid as well. I don't want the bag falling over and knocking everything out of it. I don't actually care about too much of accurate measurements, just get close enough. So the first thing we want to do is 2 teaspoons of ground coriander. Then the next thing we want, 2 teaspoons of ground cumin. Then we want 2 teaspoons of garlic powder, 2 teaspoons of paprika. I use smoked paprika, 2 teaspoons of ground turmeric. In this last little dish, because I ran out of dishes, we have a mixture of a teaspoon of cinnamon, a half teaspoon of ground cloves, and a half teaspoon of cayenne. I just kind of roughly poured some oregano and salt in my hand and threw that in there. So, boom, throw that in there. Then we want to add in 1/3 of a cup of lemon juice. I did not go fresh squeezed because f that. And then we need a half a cup of olive oil. A little extra virgin. Yeah. Now, seal that bitch up. And we shake. Get everything all nice and incorporated. And now, by the power of editing, I'm going to take a bag of 6 chicken breasts. I'm going to cut them up and throw them inside of here. And, you know, kind of like 1-inch little pieces. I don't know, be rustic as with it.
So what happened to this chicken, Bryan?
So last night, I was thawing up this chicken, and then the baby was crying, and we kind of forgot. And by we, I mean me. So it was sitting out for a little while thawing. I think we're still good. If we get violently ill and die, we know why.
We orphan Liam. We know why.
Yeah, so
if somebody like to adopt our kid, just kidding. He has a godmother.
Now, thanks to the power of editing, I've chopped up all this chicken into little tiny bits. Like I said, you don't have to be real accurate about how big they are. It's your food. You make it however you want to. Now, mix it all up. And then, after you get all that nice and mixed up, we're going to let this marinate for a couple hours. You can leave this up to, like, overnight. I think the last time I did this, I marinated for only, like 4 hours? And it was probably fine. I'm thick. I've got the germies. I am apparently a gigantic idiot and forgot one thing. I take a large white onion, cut that up, and put that inside of that mixture. And yeah, so we're gonna do that real quick. Something I've seen so many people do is cut an onion the wrong way. Most people like to cut it crossways. Nah, you gotta go South Pole to North Pole, baby.
What? Start from the bottom, now we do it.
You gotta cut from the bottom, because we started at the bottom, now we're here. So you want to cut through the root all the way up to the tip. Right, so once you've cut it in half from root to tip, you're going to end up with this lovely little shape. Now all you got to do, you don't have to peel anything just yet, cut off the tip end. And now you can just reach under here with your finger and just peel away all the crap, because we're going to leave the root intact. And that way, all of this will stay together. What you want to do is, instead of cutting it up just going across, you want to make 3 different kinds of cuts. You want to start off going from the tip side down to the root, going sideways parallel to the cutting board. So we're going to start off by making a couple of incisions, generally about you know, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch in difference. So we do that going down the onion. I think this knife might be a little too small. This onion's a bit bigger than I expected. That's what she said. Time for a bigger knife. We've made all of our little parallel to the cutting board incisions. Now we want to take and make what looks like fingers. So we're going to stick the tip of the knife in down towards the back end, starting off from closer to one of the sides. And we're going to lay that knife down towards the tip end. Boom. So now we're making what I call little fingers. Once you do that, we're going to go back to the bigger knife. Now, as you cut from the tip side back the way that you normally would, cutting to where you're parallel with the first cut you made with the tip. Now, as you just cut the same kind of thickness, you get a lot of even little chunks of onion. Now that I'm teaching you how to cut up an onion, why don't I teach you a little bit about chicken shawarma. This is a dish that I thought was much older than what it is. It originates in the 19th century in the Ottoman Empire, which is now Turkey, in that region. And it comes from the Turkish word for turning, because the way they do it is they take a spit roaster thing, but instead of it being horizontal, it's vertical. And so what they do is they stack it up in a cone shape, all the meat. Usually it's done with lamb or mutton originally, but nowadays it's done with chicken, turkey, anything like that. So they used to stack it with the big pieces at the bottom, kind of coming up, and so it would spin beside a fire. And so what they would do is, as the edges would cook, they'd shave off that bit of meat, and that would be how they got their meat. And that is actually where the origin of tacos al pastor in Mexico comes from, when it was introduced into Mexico by the Lebanese. This is actually a food you will find as like a street food in places like Egypt, you know, a lot of places like the Middle East. Generally, it's served in pita bread or in some sort of wrap, and then it's usually served with garlic sauce, some sort of like diced up veggies. I like to use arugula in mine, pickles, little sliced black olives. Now, in certain places, it's served differently. Like in Israel, they serve it with tahini sauce. The reason for that, they use tahini sauce instead of garlic sauce, is because it would go against the Jewish culture or Jewish religion to eat milk and meat together, since there is yogurt in garlic sauce. Once again, we make our few cuts. Always making sure your fingers are out of the way. And keep in mind, my head might be down, but I am doing this all non-visually, because I don't know if you remember or not, I'm blind. Let's see if this works. Huh, that worked. All right. Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to make a sponge. So the first thing we want to do is, in our mixing bowl, put in 1 cup of lukewarm water. We need to then put in a 1/2 teaspoon of sugar. And our friend, little dry active yeast. So now we're just going to mix up that mixture until the sugar and the yeast are nice and dissolved. Now, after that's all incorporated, then we're going to take a 1/2 cup of flour. We're going to drop that in there. And we're going to mix this up a little bit and make like a little sponge kind of thing. Now, once that's all mixed up, now we're going to let this sit for about 15 minutes in a nice warm place, and let's let the yeast do its magic. All right, so after your snotty looking sponge thing has been made and sitting there for 15 minutes or so, now we're going to take 2 tablespoons of olive oil, drop that in there, and 2 teaspoons of salt. And then we are going to put in 2 cups of flour. Now comes the fun part. We gotta mix it up. And once you've mixed it up with a spoon for a little bit, you can start getting in there with your hands. It's going to essentially be this clumpy mess of flour. And just in case if it ends up a little too sticky, I always keep a little bit of extra flour off to the side. Just that way, if you need to, you can add a little bit. Only a little bit at a time, but so far I haven't needed to do any of that for this. Now you're gonna take some of that excess flour, dust off a little bit of your workstation here, and now we're gonna just throw this down on here. We are going to start kneading. Now that we've kneaded this, you only need to knead it for, I don't know, a minute or two. Get it into a nice little ball. So now we're gonna take that bowl, we're gonna do a little drizzle of olive oil. Now we're going to put our ball of dough in there. We're gonna roll it around real quick so it gets coated in the olive oil we have in there so it doesn't stick to the bowl as it rises. And now we're going to cover this with saran wrap and a towel and let it sit in a warm place for about an hour until it gets doubled in size. So while we let the dough finish rising, I've got the oven preheated to 450 degrees Fahrenheit. We're gonna take our bag of meat and we're gonna dump it onto a foil lined cookie sheet. And then we're gonna place it in the middle rack. I have a rack set up to the top because after we're done baking it for about 20 minutes or so, we're gonna put it up on the top rack under the broiler and finish it off. All right, so once your dough has gotten to where it's doubled its size, we're going to press it down a little bit. And we're gonna pull her out and throw her on the counter and do some quick kneading. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a log and then cut that into 8 equal pieces. Fold this in half, break it. Take each one of these, fold them in half, break them. Now you should have 4 individual pieces, and now you just take those, break those each in half. So now you should end up with 8 individual pieces. Should be all about the same size that we're going to roll into a ball. We're going to cover, let those sit for about 10 minutes. These some funny looking balls, man. Now we're going to plate up these balls and cover them up and let them sit. All right, it's time to take this out of the broiler. Look at that. Yow. That sizzle dough. Right, so now that the shawarma meat itself is done, we're gonna take this and dump it into this container because we're gonna reuse this pan for our pita bread. So now we're gonna put this sheet back in the oven so that way it'll heat up. So we put the dough on it. It'll be nice and hot. First off, flour, sprinkle on the counter, and then get some on your rolling pin, and probably some all over my shirt. Beer break. We're gonna look at our balls, and now they're ready to be rolled out into about 8-inch pieces into about a 1/4 inch thick. So we're gonna start that up. 1 piece. Smush! So what I like doing first off is just pressing down with my palm, and then we use the roller. And you want to flip it as you do it, just that way it doesn't really stick to the counter. And if it's not perfect, who gives a shit? Voila! I think I could probably fit 2 on that pan, so let's go for 2. Boom. Put him on there. Boom. And this other guy. Boom. And now we just put this in here for about 2 minutes. And then pull those out, flip them. Now essentially you're just going to repeat that with the rest of these. I'm going to go ahead and forward this so that way we can get this done and over with. Because my wife is ready to go to bed, and it's late. Ooh, they puffing up.
Oh, they look great.
Now we want to gently flip these over. And And you want them to poof up, because that's your pocket. That's where you're going to put all your stuff at. Now I put those in there for about another minute or two. I'm intrigued. I've never made that before. So in a quick intermission from making pita bread, as this is the 2 pieces that came out, we are going to make a quick garlic sauce to go with this. So we need is mayonnaise, plain Greek yogurt, lemon juice, and garlic cloves. So just want a couple spoonfuls of both the mayonnaise and the Greek yogurt. I've got 3 cloves of garlic over here that I'm just going to grate into that and squeeze about maybe probably a teaspoon or 2 of lemon juice in there. Give it a nice mix, and we'll have our garlic sauce. Try not to grate your fingers. I don't think fingers go good in garlic sauce. I don't know, maybe they do. So now essentially what we want to do is we want to cut our pita bread in half, so that way we have 2 pockets each. Grab some arugula, chop up some olives and some pickles. Throw all that together with the chicken inside of the pita with a little bit of the garlic sauce, maybe some tzatziki, and we have ourselves chicken shawarma. Now we've packed this. We'll throw in some olives, which we would have more of, but somebody decided they wanted to start snacking on these today. All right, Stephanie, here you go. You get to try this. A fresh homemade chicken shawarma sandwich.
Well, thank you. It's good.
Are you just saying that?
Well, I have a cold, so I can't taste that much. Ooh, but I am getting that spice.
It's so good. Over actor.
I gave the camera a thumbs up and everything.
Well, you are scarfing that down, so.
It's really tasty. I'm very impressed with the pita bread. Good job, Bryan.
All right, whatever. Out of the way. All right, so that'll be all for this episode of Brunchin with Bryan. I will put the entire recipe down in the doobly-doo down below. Comment, like, share with all of your millions of friends, because we know how popular you are. We'll see you next time. I'm sick. I've got the germies.